Bonjour, AJ Inspired him here, and this is the video to attach either our earrings to our piece, or we are going to be attaching a pin to our piece. If you have either a lanyard or a retractable badge or the pop socket, you'll want to watch the other video, as this one's going to be more specific to the earrings and the pin. So, all right, well, while we are here, you should have your piece pretty much beaded, and of course it should be already have the banding on it, and we let it sit for a long time, so now the banding, it is good to go. Our next step is we are going to be cutting out the white part. Now there's a couple things about this. Some people don't want to see any white, so they cut extremely close to the banding, so there is no white left here. Others, like myself, like to keep a little bit of the white, and when I mean a little bit, I mean like we're talking a little bit. And there's a couple different reasons why. One, I don't accidentally cut a line, because if you a thread, if you accidentally cut a thread while we do this, you will have to redo the banding. Just because we cut a thread, you don't really want to just glue that piece. You're going to want to have to re-sew the whole thing with a new piece of thread. What I like to do is I like to turn it around and I look at it through a light, and I like to see where is the thread the furthest over. And a lot of times, most of my thread is going to be within my rhinestone or beading area, but there has been occasions where I went a little bit too far over, and if I didn't look at the back, I would have cut a thread. So we're going to just analyze the back, and we're going to look there first to see if everything looks like it's in order, or if there's a strand really far out that we need to be aware of. Mine looks good, but again, maybe put yours up to some light and kind of look at the back and just see, do you see your thread is outside of your unit? Like I was saying, some people like to leave a little white. I'm going to show you right here. You can see I left a little gap. I like it. I think it just adds to the piece. And you can see again on this one, I actually cut it flush to the rhinestone because there was already enough white here. But everyone's different, but I like to leave some white. So a pair of earrings that I'm working on that I'm going to be doing with you tonight, you will see that I did not do the rhinestone banding on this, but you can see that I left a little edge. And that's just because I like that, and it's going to help me with the banding. And let's just bring in a little white in. So really up to you what you want to do, but all you're going to do is you're going to take your scissors, and I'm just using just an extra piece of the foundation, but you're just going to take your scissors and you're going to cut around your item, depending on the shape. If it's oval, circle, square, whatever shape you did, you're just going to want to cut around it. And if you cut around it and you can see that you only have this much here, you're going to only want this much here through the rest of your piece, top, bottom, through the whole thing. So just go around that and start cutting it like it does. You will see as you start cutting, you don't need extra sharp scissors. You don't need fabric cutting scissors. You can pretty much use any type of scissors that you want, but just go around it and start cutting. And once you are done with that, we are going to get to the earring piece. While you're cutting that, I'll just keep talking here. We will be needing our thread in line, and for the sakes of this video today, I already did the already kind of put my thread together here on my needle, and I already knotted it, and I have a couple different pieces here that we're going to be going over in this video. So while you're cutting that, if you need some more time, you could pause the video and come back. But in the meantime, I am going to start discussing the pin. If you did not get the pin kit, you could just fast forward this video until we start talking about the types of earrings that you have in your kit. All right, so the pin, let's discuss this. as I said earlier, the pin is really great for hats. You can put it on your lanyards. You can give it to someone and they can put it on their purse. They're really great. And as you can see with the pin, it has one sharp point. It kind of goes into this locking mechanism here and it locks. So that is great. As you can see, it has 3 holes. So I'll give you some history on this. I have seen some people use hot glue and they just hot glue it right to their back of their unit after they do the backing. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't look the best, and I prefer to do it a little differently. Another thing I've seen is people actually sew, and no different than how we were tacking down, is they actually tack, and I'll kind of show you, they tack the 3 holes down to the backing. So when you have your backing, this is what it'll look like, depending on what color you have. But you're going to have your backing, and then you would see your white thread or black thread across this. That's another option too, and it's very stable. What I like to do is I kind of like to hide it. So what we are going to do is we are actually going to be attaching it to the back of our work where we think it's a good fit. And you might want to measure too. I just put this up to mine, and you can kind of see the size of it. Due to that size, you will definitely make sure that you leave yourself, you know, that little white area that we talked about. So when you're cutting over, you know, you may just want to go like about this big across the whole thing, just because of the size of the pin. But anyways, what we are going to be doing is we're actually going to be gluing it to the back of your piece. Then once we have it glued there, we are going to be putting our fox leather on top of it so that it actually looks like, I'll show you, it'll kind of look like this. It'll all be covered. All you'll see is the pin, the back, and the front. Everything else will be under the fox leather, secured, glued down to our piece, so we don't have to worry about it. So I've been having some issues with turning my iPad, so we're going to try this again. I like having this face-to-face with you in the beginning and the end, but just understand that sometimes technology doesn't work in your favor, and if it messes up again, sorry about that, but I'm going to turn the iPad now to start getting into it. All right, here we go. Okay. So this is our foundation. Say your piece is on the back of this. We are going to take some glue, and what I would probably suggest first is taking your piece and figuring out where the top is. So if you know your top is going to be like right here, you need to kind of line up to where your back of your pin is going to be, because you wouldn't want the pin to be on an angle, because then when someone wears it, the words are crooked. You really want to make sure that you know where your top is and that you are going to have it aligned perfectly in the center of that item. Now, sometimes what I have done is I look at the front and then I mark exactly with a little pencil up, you know, on the very top of it where you have it cut. I'll use this one. And I'll put a little pencil mark right here so that I know when I have it turned over that that is my top. And that's dead on center. Okay, boom. I turn around, there's my little pencil mark. Then I can go half down and then I can line it up to that. It's really up to you how you want to do it. But once you line it up and you have things looking good, you are going to take your glue. And you are just going to basically be putting glue on the back of this. And I just squeeze some on and then I just kind of rub it around. And honestly, for this part, you know, before I was very cautious, like saying don't goop it on too much, don't do this too much. For this part, it doesn't really matter because no one's going to see it and it's going to be hidden. So even if it gets gooped up or it gets moved around somewhere, it really shouldn't matter. see if I can get you a good view. So you can just see I have it kind of gooped on there all over just the part that's going to lay flat. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be putting it where you picked you wanted the center to be. And you are just going to put it right in the center. And because the glue is not dry yet, you can kind of move it around a little bit and just kind of make sure that it looks good in the spot that you wanted. And then what I kind of do is I use my nail to squish it down a little bit. Now this time we won't have to let this sit right away. We're going to keep playing with it. If you weren't comfortable with that, you could let it sit, you know, for a few hours or overnight. But because this is going to go underneath our banding and we're not going to be messing with it much after that, we can keep going. So we have that done. What I do is I pick up the pin, I take my banding, and I don't need this much banding to play with, so I'm just going to cut a smaller chunk of this guy. Okay, I'm sorry, this is the fox leather. And all I'm going to do, and I'm going to try to pick mine up, but if I were you, I would just leave yours flat and push it in. But you're going to want to take your fox leather and push it on that pin, but make sure that that pin is like exactly straight up, because we are going to be using that as our judgment of where we need to put something or make another cut. So as you can see, I just had it straight up, and that tells me that this is where that part is going to sit, right? Well, that hole's not big enough because the bottom's not going through, and we definitely want that in. So what then I do is I just take my scissors and I make an additional small cut, and I'm going to try to show you this as I do it. And once I make a little cut, I try to play and push it in there and see if it works. If it doesn't, I make it a little bit bigger. And some of this fox leather, you would actually just be able to cut it a little bit. Sometimes, depending on how thick it is, you might be better with an X-Acto blade to get a really good cut. And I'm going to see if that's big enough. And as you can see, I'm just making little bitty cuts. And then when I realize it does or doesn't work, I'm going back in there, making another little bitty cut. So right now you can see my cuts have been very small. Okay, and I'm starting to get in there. Okay, as you can see, I'm working the fox leather around it now. As you can see that, let me move my hair here. And for the little side pieces, if you're not happy with how it looks, you just keep squishing it down. Just till it gets just to the right side or depth that you're wanting. And as you can see for mine, I'm happy with that. Now it's time to work on the other side. Now the other side, we have the big knot. So I kind of start messing with it already on the other side, and I start trying to get a ballpark figure, where does that land? And I kind of shimmy the thing back and forth to kind of get a groove. But then what I just do is I take my scissors and I just make a small incision on the opposite side. You can kind of see I'm trying to eye it up exactly where I think that's going to land. Okay, hold on a second. I have to squish this down a little bit. My thing is not going back anymore. It's getting caught up in the fox leather. All right. And we are going to make a small little incision. And then we're going to kind of work on that little incision. to make it a little bit bigger. You can see I didn't start with a huge one because I just want it to fit. I don't want it to be too big, because then you're going to see all of the foundation stuff, right? So now you can see I pushed it through, and now I'm just going to kind of trim up any excess little pieces. All right, that looks like it fits, and I'm just going to kind of squish it down here a little bit, make sure that the clip still works. It works. Then I'm going to make sure that I can close it, and it closes, and there you go. I think that just looks a lot better. Like I said, you start with a little bitty hole, and if you have to make it bigger, you just go from there. Now what we're going to do is you are going to actually be applying glue now to the rest of it. And we are just going to kind of hold our clip, and we are going to apply glue to the rest of our item, but we are going to stay away from the edges. So when I mean stay away, I mean wherever your edges are, stay away from it at least by this much. And the reason I say that is because we have to edge that, and we are going to be edging it with beads and a needle, of course. If you have glue on the edges, it is extremely hard to bead through it, and it kind of gunks up our needle. So you really want to just kind of go to wherever your foundation piece end. You just kind of want to go to about this point and leave that edge undone everywhere. But you're just going to squish some glue in here, smear it all around, and then when you have it in there, kind of use your fingers and smooth it out. And you're going to do that through the whole thing. Smooth, 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 smooth it out. And then what you're going to want to do is leave it overnight. And it'll kind of have an unfinished end because we haven't cut that yet. But we don't want to cut it until it's fully dry. So for your piece, it's done. And for the next video, when we do our edging, we are going to make sure that everything matches your white foundation, but we want to make sure it's fully dried and cured before we do that. So at this point, you could just set yours down and let it dry for at least like the 18 hours, you know, and let it completely dry. Just make sure it's completely squished down so that it's nice and even, and that'll be it. And then when you come back, you're going to be watching the edging video where we are going to be trimming these to make sure that they are exactly the same. And we're going to be applying an edge to our piece to hide the foundation and the backing. So, okay. All right, we have that one done. Let's go to the earrings. In the kit, I supplied 3 different earrings. This one is like a lever back. It has a flat piece. These are really known for kabachins because people will actually attach these to made kabachins, and they just kind of close over your ear like that. Really nice, comfortable. I've not had a problem wearing them. And I've also provided just your standard post. If I can get that in the camera, right? Let's see if I can zoom in. Just your standard post. So these are going to be also very comfortable, and of course you would just put a backing on that, which I provided. Then the other one is just going to be your standard hook, and I did give 2 jump rings just in case you wanted 2, how you liked with 2, or you just wanted 1. I'm just going to do the larger one today. If you wanted to do the second one, you'd be putting that in between the 2 to connect it to that one to this one. But I'm not going to be using that jump ring. I'm just going to be using the larger one with the hook. So I'm going to start with the post. And the post is just the one single post, if you can see it in my hand. And when we talk about earrings, think about once the earrings that you made, how are they going to hang and how big or low they are. So you wouldn't want to put them, say this is your back of your earring, say this is the part back here. You wouldn't want to put it down here because then this part's going to be covering up part of your ear. So you want to think about where is it going to go on your ear and where's the best fit for it. And all you're going to do is you're going to take some glue And I'm going to kind of use the same piece I just used. I'm not a big fan of waste, so I'm going to try to do as much as I can utilizing all the same pieces. But you're going to just take a gob of glue, like you just see here, and you are going to put your post where you think it goes. Now, I will tell you, I would be cautious just to make sure that you're putting it in the middle of your piece, because if you put it to the far to the right or too far to the left, of course, it's not going to be centered on the earring. So again, if it helps you, make a mark on the foundation where your center is so that you kind of stay aligned with that. Once this dries a little bit, all you're going to be doing is you're just going to be poking your earring post right through the fox leather, just like that. And if the fox leather is a little bit thicker, what you'll just want to do is just make a little bitty incision with your scissors and just put it through. And then you are going to take the rest of your backing once you have that hole in there. And my glue is oozing out. That's what I get for not closing it, so I'm just going to close that real quick. What you're going to do is you are going to apply glue to the rest of your foundation piece, the white piece, with your fox leather already sitting there, and you're going to just make sure you stay away from the edges. And I would say stay away about this much, because I still have some edging to do. And the edging, depending on the type of edging we're going to do, I know what we're going to do, but if you think about it, the edging needs a little, let me get you zoomed in here, a little bitty piece of white so that we can edge up to it. And if you don't allow for enough, or you put glue towards the edge where we're going to be doing this beadwork, it will be extremely difficult for us to, one, sew that, and two, our needle will get really gooped up from the glue. So like I said, you want to stay away about this far from the edge of all your work, because you don't need anything there to attach it to your work, because we're going to be sewing it. The only thing you really need to glue is the center parts, and then squish it out just to make sure there's no bubbles and that the glue gets spread out, but just stay away from your edges. And that's what you're going to do with your earrings, no different. You're just going to put your glue on there after you poke your hole, and you're just going to squish it in there, and then just kind of, I don't know, you could say massage it or whatever, because you just want that glue to be squished in the center so that it's nice and flat, but you're just going to stay away from the edges. And you're just going to keep squishing. And then, because we just glued it, I would leave it sit, overnight. And in the next video then, we are going to talk about edging. Well, we'll first talk about cutting, to make sure that our fox leather is the same size and shape as our foundation. And then we are going to do edging. So for you, if that's the type of earring you had, you are done at this point. And thank you so much. Next earring, we're going to talk about the lever bag. These are very popular. These are probably what I use on most of my earrings, just because I really like working with them. I think they're comfortable. And I think they make very secure earrings. So we are going to kind of do the same thing as we've been doing with these other items. Now, this piece comes off. If we really feel like we needed to do that, we could take it off. If this is a pain, when you're trying to put this through your fox leather and it's just like, okay, that's a pain. Well, we just take it off then. And I'm going to show you how to do that. I use a pair of needle nose, and I squeeze it, and you can just see it just pops out just like that. And that's what we're going to do to put it back in as well. So now we have just a blank. And if you can see, it kind of looks like just the post that we just did, but it just has the back for the clip. So what we're going to do is we are gluing this right to your foundation. Please keep in mind, you want to, when you're doing this, you want to stay away from the edges, because that is metal. So we cannot bead our edging through metal, one. Two, you have to also think about, where do you want this earring to sit on your ear? if you have it, again, too far down on the earring, all of this is going to be sitting in the middle of your ear. So you definitely want it still to the top, but you need to leave that space there for our edging. And so keeping that in mind. So we already cut around, so you should have kind of know where the top of your earring is. And what you're going to be doing is you're just going to be kind of coming to the place that you want. And I think what I'm going to do is, because my glue isn't dried yet, I was able to move everything, is I'm going to use a different part of foundation, and I'm going to show you on just one whole piece how I would do these ones. Okay, so we are going to take some glue, and we are going to be putting it right on the back. You know, like everything else with this glue, if you give it time to dry, you won't have to worry about it moving or shifting. For this video, I'm kind of having to go through several different things because there were so many different kits that I kind of feel like I'm rushing, but don't feel like you're rushing. If you just want to glue stuff down and come back later and do the rest when it's more secured onto your foundation, feel free to do that. But now that we have the glue on there, we're going to measure to the best spot on our earring. And I'm just going to say, for guess, mine's going to be right there. Now I'm going to make sure I have it centered, because if we have it crooked, right, that means it's going to hang on our ear crooked. And now I'm just going to push down. And if it oozes out on this one, that's okay, because all of this is going to be underneath our banding, our fox leather. So you're not going to see it. So if it squishes out, that's okay. No problem. Then you at least know it's on there pretty good. And you're just going to want to squish it down really good. So no different than some of the other work we've been doing. You could wait till this dries, or if you're not too worried about it, what we're going to do is we're going to first be putting our fox leather on top of it. And we're going to be seeing where this point comes out. And make sure that you're lining up your fox leather so it covers up your whole thing. If this was my piece, I wouldn't want to be pushing it down here and then leaving all this empty. Typically when you're doing fox leather, you're starting with an example, a very small piece, because it's easier to work with. But I wouldn't want to put the fox leather on and say, oh no, I put the hole in the wrong place. Make sure that you're eyeing it up so that your leathers and everything match up. And I'm going to try to do this in the camera. Typically I would say leave this on a flat surface and push down, but I'm going to try to do it on camera so you can see. And all I'm doing is I'm going to be using some pressure and I'm pushing through. Now if you have the fox leather fabric, which is a thicker fox leather, beautiful, works just the same. Thought I brought one with, but maybe I didn't. But regardless, you may need to put a little bit of pressure on it. Now you'll notice you have this whole back thing yet sticking out, and you need to get that in there. So what I do is I kind of try to ballpark again, where do I think it's going to land? And my opinions, because looking at it like this, I can kind of get a feel that it's going to land right about trying to make sure I get this in the camera as well. It looks like it's going to land. Oops. Right about here. So what your goal is to cut a slit right where it is. And it might take you a little bit. And you can see I just got a little hole. I'm going to work with that hole. And I'm going to try to cut it over more. And you may have to actually bend the fox leather a little bit to cut a bigger hole. And you can see I just was able to bend it a little bit and cut a bigger hole. Now with that hole the size it is, I'm going to look to see, do I need it to be bigger? And it looks like it will have to be. So I'm going to just cut one side of it to see if I can get it just a tad bit bigger. So now you can see I have a slit in the middle here. And now I'm going to try to squeeze that clip in here. Now it's going to kind of get a little bit off just because it's a hoop there. You can't really do too much about it. Either it goes, you start with one way or the other. To me, this is the easier way of doing it. Now you see I kind of have a bubble, so now I'm going to kind of work out that bubble where my post is, and that kind of means that you're making that post hole a little bit bigger. But when we glue this, we are going to be holding it down and squishing out those bubbles, so it should be fine. And as you can see, it's going to be hidden under. And what you can do now is take your glue and put it on the rest of your piece. Now that you have these two pieces, you already have your hole here. So there's really nothing more you need to do because you already have the hole there. But you could take that off now, and now you can put your glue on the remainder of your your beading foundation. Please stay away from the edges like we already talked about. We are going to be threading that piece, all of the edges with our thread and some more beads. So you want to stay away from the edges. I would just say do the middle part. Once you have your glue in there, push your post back down and smooth it out. If you have to make your hole for the post a little bit bigger, do that, but just keep smoothing it out. And where you have, if you can see your cut, squish it down with the glue and just keep going all around it. Squish, 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 squish. And for yours now, once it's fully dry, you can use your tool and you can put back on your earrings. And you've seen how simple it was to pop out. You are going to be doing the same thing to put it back in. And I can just show you, but pretty much all you're going to do is you're going to just use your tool and you're just going to push both tools back in. But in the meantime, just squish, squish, squish down. When you have your results that you like, everything looks flat, you did not get your edges, let it sit. And I would say let it sit there. If you can do it overnight, that would be great, because then your glue and your earring piece are going to be fully attached to your unit. And then that would be perfect for when we start our next step. In the next video, what we'll be going over is we are going to be cutting the fox leather to match your foundation piece. So however you cut this piece originally for your earrings, we're going to be cutting this to match that. So for now, if that was the type of earring you had, I would just let it sit. And when it's fully dry, attach your back and watch the next video, and we will pick that up when you do the edging video. All right, next earring. This is going to be the hook and a jump ring. So I have this little fancy tool that I use for jump rings. Not everybody has one, but they kind of look like a brass ring, and literally you just put your piece into one of the holes here. You got to find the one that fits, and it helps you open them. If you don't have a fancy tool like that, you could actually take needle nose pliers, if you have two of them, to open it. If you don't have something to open it, you may want to pause this video until you can find a way to open that, because our goal is that we're going to want this thing sitting in here, and we are going to be sewing this down to the earring. So I'm going to start with that process. Like I said, if you don't have a way to open these jump rings, if you don't have two needle nose pliers, you don't have anything like that, I would recommend just maybe getting something before we continue. If you do have one of these fancy tools, you're going to see that, let me see if I can get this in the video with maybe a close-up here. But you're going to see I'm going to just take this jump ring, I'm putting it in my fancy tool, and once I have it in there at the right angle, all you do is you just twist it and it opens for you. So then once I have it opened, I'm going to actually be attaching my earring part to that, and you can see it goes right on and hangs. Then I'm going to be putting it back into my fancy little tool. I have to just find the right adapter, and here we go. And I'm just going to be closing it, and just like that. So just like that, we have our jump ring attached to our earring. this is the piece that we are going to be sewing down to our earring. But when we do, we have to make sure that it's going to sit right, because if we sew it down, and say we sew it down to our piece and we didn't pay attention and we sew it like this, well, when we wear the earring, it's going to actually be backwards. So we really have to be cautious that the earring's going to be facing this way when we sew it down. And traditionally, this was not how it was done. Traditionally, what they did is they took more beads and they made a hook. And they say they would use 6 beads here. And they would take 3 here, 3 here. And in between the 3 beads is how you would hang your hook. Wow, so many issues I've seen with them where just because people hug or they walk or they answer their phone or they're talking, that thread eventually gives out. And then what happens? Pretty much kind of messes up with the banding. It messes up with the whole earring. And if you didn't notice, you may lose the whole earring. So what I've seen and what I like to do is we use these metal jump rings, and we are going to sew it right to our piece. This is not going to go anywhere like it would be if it's beads. So that little white piece that you left there, we are going to sew right behind it, and we're going to just try to do a couple strands. That's all we were going to need, and we will do our best. And I'm going to try to show that to you right now. All right. Now, if you're still working on this part, feel free to pause the video and come back. I know I'm trying to whip through this videos, but this kind of part I think is not as fun as the beading, but it definitely gives you a break from the beading. It gives you something different to try. So for the lack of this video, so it didn't take me 10 minutes to thread this, I already did it. And what I did is I already tied my 3 knots at the end, and I'm ready. So I'm going to be doing this to the best of my ability with you being able to see in the camera, but please be patient. I will show you as I go. Just know that you're going to kind of need to hold the ring in place with one hand as you are trying to get your needle through it. So you can see I'm kind of holding, the jump ring. I'm holding my beading, and I am literally just going to go through this edging. And please be careful because this is so little, but you can see I went through the front of my unit to the, nope, I want to do that the opposite. Good thing I was trying to talk that out. You can see I went through the ring to the front, and now I'm just going to pull it through. Because we have a knot at this end, we want that knot to stay in the back, because we're going to hide it in under our fox leather. So now I am going to go basically, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to go through that white part. I'm going to come back out again, pull a little tight, and I'm going to do it again. And I'm just going to keep doing it until that ring is fully attached to our unit. And of course I let go too soon, huh? All right. Again, as you're doing this, just make sure that the earring is facing the correct way. Once you get a couple in there and you get them secured, you are going to be, it's not going to be as difficult. And when we apply our fox leather, we are going to actually be gluing this down to give it another sense of reinforcement. But for right now, we are sewing it to give it a little bit of extra strength to kind of put up with some of the abuse the earrings go through, to kind of make it last a little bit longer. And as you can kind of see, it's kind of already hanging there. And I'm just going to keep going. I wouldn't say you need to do 80 pass-throughs or anything like that, but I would say go through at least, make sure you at least pass over between your piece and the backing, I'm going to at least say 5 times to make sure that it's nice, it's in there, and it's solid. And we are still going to be putting our fox leather over this. So whatever we have here that doesn't look pretty, it's going to cover it. So we don't have to be worried about too much about, oh, is it going to look bad? We don't have to worry about that. I want that a little bit farther down though. Now, when we do, when we get to the next video, when we are doing our fox leather, not the fox leather, when we do our edging, just know that your piece is just going to be a little bit more trickier because not everybody else has the earrings to do their edging. Normally, when you edge a piece, you're just going to edge the 2 pieces together and la 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 la, and it just goes real simple. No different than many of the pieces I did. You're just going to edge, 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 edge. Well, we have a piece here that we are going to still have to edge, right? But we're going to have this little complication because of this. So just know that yours is going to be slightly different when we get to that. All right, I'm probably only going to do one more pass through. And like I said, we are going to be gluing this and to our fox leather. So I'm very confident we are going to have a much more stable piece this way. And we will do the fox leather after this. So after you go through a couple pass throughs, you can kind of see mine. I went over it several times, and now I'm just going to bring my needle to the back and I'm just going to tie off my knot. That's all I'm going to do now. So I have that pass through done. So I have a little tail left here that I'm actually going to use to knot to. Necessarily I wouldn't do that, but since I already have a tail here, I might as well. Feel free just to tie yourself 3 knots like we've been doing for the rest of our pieces. And then when that is done, we are going to cut off this thread and we are going to apply our backing. And we are not going to be cutting our backing after we apply the backing. We are literally just going to let it dry and sit. Okay. So that part is done. If you are not at this point, keep going. If you are at this point, that's great. I hope it worked out well for you. Just keep in mind that when your earring is hanging, it should have the hook the correct way. So, all right. So now attaching our leather backing. I'm not sure if you've been listening to the other ones, but it is very important when we do the backing that we do not go to the edges, because we are going to be putting an edge on it. Well, if we have anything, this shows the really good backing. If we have anything that's close to the edge like this, it's going to cause us issues. One, with trying to sew through that because the glue, it's so hard to sew through that. And then 2, it kind of gums up our needle. So if we don't have to do that, better off. So we are going to take our glue to the back of our units, staying away from the edges, and we are just going to apply it. And I'm just going to be applying a very, very small dot where all of that threading is that we just did. The rest of it, I'm going to goop in the middle, and then I'm just going to kind of spread it around, but I'm not touching the edges. I've done that before, and that's why I'm just stressing it, because I didn't know. And I glued to the edges, and it was just not a great experience trying to sew through the glue. 1, I went through many needles, and 2, it just didn't make it fun. It made it extremely stressful and just wasn't a good time. So now that you see, I didn't goop it on. I just have a little bit because honestly, we're sewing it. So we just need this so that our backing has something attached to and it doesn't bubble in the middle. So now that you have that, and then you have your fox leather backing, either it's going to be the fabric or the glitter or some sort in your kit, whatever one you got provided. And I'm just going to lay it on. And once you lay it on, I squish, squish, squish. And I don't squish to the point like I want the, you know, I'm trying to squish it through the fox leather. I'm just squishing to make sure that it attaches very well. And just make sure there's like no air bubbles in the back. I just make sure all my threads are hidden. And then what I do is I walk away and I wait till that fully dries. In the next video, what we'll be discussing is we will be, once it's fully dried, we are going to cut off the fox leather to match where we cut the white. And then we will be doing our edging. And the edging that we're going to be doing is going to be something of what I call the wrap style. I think it's a very popular one, a very easy one. And that is going to be the one I do the intro videos to. Down the line, I might get into a little bit further discussion about like how we do flat stitch, or maybe a different one. I think I have this one too, where it kind of has like, you know, one that sticks out. You have the two down, which are the black, and then you have the one that sticks up, and they kind of go a little crazy and funky, which makes it kind of look unique. But I'll get into a video at a later time on how to do that one. For this kit, I'm just going to be doing just the videos on how to do the wrap style for now. But I am going to try to turn the camera back to myself. If the video messes up, I really apologize, but here we go. Okay, I've been trying to work on that so it doesn't keep happening. If it happened again, really sorry. Kind of out of my hands, but I hope you don't have any questions or you didn't have any concerns. And if your holes don't look exactly like, you know, what we did earlier, that's okay. Just keep working on it. And you got to remember, this is your first piece possibly, or maybe one that you have done in a really long time, or maybe you've never done a flat back earring. So just keep working on it. Just know that sometimes the fox leather doesn't cut appropriate. Hide as well can sometimes be easier to work with, but there's all different types of backing. So just work with it, and then when you're all done, just let it sit, and we will pick up the next video, which is going to be applying our edging. All right, thank you so much.